Welcome to the Muslim Street. The Muslim Street, you can find us at www.themuslimstreet.com. Across all social media, that would be Facebook, Instagram, and I think X. I don't know. They still haven't let me in on that one that we've been banned from. So the Muslim Street is brought to you by Lance Scurv Show, located in Accra, Ghana, produced by the Lance Scurv Show. You can find him at lancescurv.com and across YouTube, as well as the Muslim Street at the Lance Scurv Show. Also, in addition to that, we're going to jump into a topic called Africa for Africans, the impact of the Islamic revolution on Africa. This is very pertinent that we attempt to organize and connect struggles that are going on in other places to the liberation on the African continent. Art Mobley, who is a founding member of the National Association of Black Journalists, also co-convener of the Darfur 23, will lead that discussion. Also, what we have with us, Dr. Viper White, the one with that nice, well, you used to call that a stingy brim back in the day.
Yeah, my dad's.
Yeah. You know, if you want stingy brim, it's like, okay, you know, like you want a hitman or something, bro. If you want stingy brim, you know, they knew you was coming for business. I preferred art. I prefer the Borsellino types, you know.
Yeah.
Hamburg, my go-to hat. You know, yeah. Now he wore a fedora. There's a difference, but you gotta know
your fedora. Okay. That's right.
You gotta know your hats, man.
Yeah.
I wore either the Borsellino or the Hamburg. The Hamburg.
I'm a pork pie man myself.
So that's even worse of a hit man. That kind of hat that Art's talking about. Say that name again. Pork pie.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. But that was like the one who come up and clean up after the hit.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's a brother man hat, man. Come on.
So every year when the cold starts rolling in Chicago around November, I used to take my hat and get it blocked. I go get me a nice.
Yeah, that's right. You can't get them blocked down here, man.
Yeah, you got to get them blocked, bro. I mean, you know,
I know I can't get them blocked.
It's a serious hat, bro.
In Orlando, I can't get it. I have to
get a hat sponsor here
to get my hat blocked.
You shine in Atlanta. I mean, Orlando, man. Come on.
Not in Orlando. It's still the dirty South.
Before we jump into the topic, Lance was attempting to put up a couple of photos, and we'll forward these photos. Before I jump into the topic, which kind of, you know, is the topic, and that is, where is the petty black bourgeois leadership at the political class, where they continue to capitulate on not only the struggle as it relates to African people on the African continent and throughout the world, but also where they continue to capitulate to corporate donors, the Zionist donors, as it relates to the Middle East, the genocide in Gaza. Some of them won't even mention that it's a genocide in Gaza. That happened to Jasmine Crockett. I mean, she could have literally won. She wasn't that far off. Won that Democratic nomination to the Senate, just as Kamala Harris. If Kamala Harris would have pivoted and called Gaza what it was, as opposed to, well, I'm just going to do what Joe Biden's going to do. Well, Joe Biden said he is a Zionist, a super Zionist, and they initially funded this murderous regime that has caused hundreds of thousands of lives over in Gaza. It was the Democratic Party that did that. Kamala Harris, all she had to do was pivot. She'd have been in the White House. We wouldn't even be talking about this. Okay. Now, she didn't, because why? She has Zionist politics, period. The black petty bourgeoisie leadership is owned by the Zionist lobby. And until we understand that, and I prepare to, Dr. White, create a strategy to deal with them, then we'll continue to be talking about this a year from now and 5 years from now, how they own our black politicians. And the last thing I'll say before I pivot was that Lance was going to put a couple of pictures up. We'll forward those later in the show. You can find it on our website, post it. But there were two politicians out of the state of Illinois that I want to make an example of. One, Juliana Stratton, who is headed to the Senate from the state of Illinois, received over $250,000 from the AIPAC and the Zionist lobby in order to win that seat. And the second one, which I think is more critical of an example that we can deal with, and that is a Congress running for Congress against Jesse Jackson Jr., unknown by the name of Donna Miller, a Black woman, received nearly $6 million in a primary in order to win that election against Jesse Jackson Jr., who the Zionists don't trust because they didn't trust his daddy. All right. So they literally bought the state of Illinois. They already have Pritzker, the governor's office. They already have the other senator, Mr. Fat Cat's been there for 20 years. So now they have two other seats that they can count on, one worth $6 million. And you better know she's going to do exactly what they say do. Right? And then Juliana Stratton going to the Senate. She'll be another Black senator acting like Cory Booker, doing the bidding of the white man. And in particular, this white man is known as the state of Israel. So I posted this a few weeks ago on Facebook. And I you know us, we deal with research and facts. And there was a Muslim brother who followed this Black American non-Muslim sister in saying, "Oh, I don't believe that. I don't care what you believe. This ain't about what you believe. It ain't about what you feel. They took the money. And because they're Black and have the same skin color as we have, don't mean they are not sellouts. We got to get over that. We got to get over that old Barack Obama syndrome of creating this firewall against any kind of criticism to Black people when they sell out. Barack Obama sold your ass out, and these two sisters going to the Congress, one in the Senate and the other in the House, are going to sell you out because they already took the money, right? So, Dr. White, you want to kind of chime in on any of that before we jump into
absolutely. Brother Malik, you're absolutely right. And that is why it's important that we begin to seriously think about a third party alternative, because right now the congressional leaders and the senatorial leaders of both parties, especially African Americans, they're on the take. In fact, there was an article that came out about 4 years ago that you can buy any congressman, a senator for less than $25,000, and that's what AIPAC has done. They're not for our bidding. They're not for our cause, and we have to ask specific questions of African Americans and people who said they would like to represent us on issues of reparations, issues of Africa, the AU, issues of the Arab state, the Gulf states. We have to ask specific questions about where do they stand. And sadly, the populace are not asking those questions. And when the few of us do ask those questions, they look at us as part of some type of conspiracy theory forward, and that's very sad. So yeah, I mean, we also have Sheila McCormick in our own state down south. She's under investigation, but she has taken hundreds of thousands of dollars from AIPAC. I mean, in fact, about it, in my own state, every Black politician, all right, of every major city, region has taken money from AIPAC, every one of them. In fact, the Black guy who's running for governor right now, Baron Donalds, he has taken over several millions of dollars from them. And that's sad. You see, so...
the Congressional Black Caucus, which are the leaders of what I term and what Omali Yeshitilla terms and what Doroben Wahat terms the Black petty bourgeoisie. They knew that there was a vote going on March 25th in the UN General Assembly to adopt a resolution declaring that the European slave trade was the greatest crime against humanity. We know that the United States, along with Israel and Argentina, voted against that resolution, even though the resolution passed. the Congressional Black Caucus knew that this was going on. They knew it was going to happen and had no team there, no representation there, no retort to this racist government of the United States response to that. I mean, it's like they don't even fear the masses of Black people who voted for them and put it in office. I mean, what are we doing?
Well, the Black Caucus has been AWOL for a long time. So it's almost like they're not there. And I understand this. Dr. White is talking about changing parties. Did you hear that?
Yes. Yes. What has taken place, Brother Art, is that because of the diatribes and the verdicts of President Trump, but it's also part of the larger system, whereby they have no respect for the African American community, no respect for the global South, people of the global South. They follow a policy of genocide. They follow a policy of being anti-human. They follow a policy of might makes right, regardless of their views. So therefore, I have decided, all right, to withdraw from the GOP primary to go completely independent. Now, some people may say, well, why not Democrats? Because the Democrats and the Republicans are two wings on the same bird, all right? And they both follow the same policies. Neither group has condemned Israel. Neither group has said they're going to draw back support. Neither group have utilized the term genocide. Neither group has said anything about the proxy war that's taking place in the Sudan. Neither group has offered any real support of such progressive governments like Burkina Faso. So therefore, we have to go a different route because again, if we do not go a different route, not only will we be an enemy to our own people in the United States, but we'll be an enemy to the people and the people of the world. All right. So therefore, I decided not to follow and not to be part of that hypocrisy, especially with the fact that this man is calling for actually not only a genocide, a Holocaust, you see, a destruction of a whole civilization. And if he feels like that towards the Iranians, obviously, I know how he feels towards African Americans and people of African descent throughout the world.
Well, that's a good move to move to the independent movement and go from there. I think that's where most of us belong anyway. If you're going to participate in politics, you definitely need to be in a third, fourth, fifth party, something. They need to bring back the Black Panther Party. You know, somebody. We got to change the whole dynamic of politics in America. And I think we've got an inside track to do that, regardless of what's going on out of the donor class of AIPAC. Because checking the news this morning, Bibi Netanyahu is in a lot of trouble in Israel, right, among those people who are former prime ministers, former officials. They are all out to do a Caesar thing on him. They are really through with his leadership. And the only thing that can save him right now is the American political bloc, as long as Donald Trump doesn't pull the trigger and essentially let Bibi Netanyahu know that he is willing to do what every other president so far has done, check Bibi Netanyahu and Israel, threaten to pull funds, threaten to hold up all of those military support contracts and vehicles and pull a rug from under them. But I think this time, it has gotten serious enough because both of them are taking such a butt whooping in the Persian Gulf that they don't have anything else to scream. But I'm gonna blow y'all off the map with a nuclear weapon. I mean, that's really their only fallback position right now. That is the only tactical thing that they think that they can do. And of course, they're not going to do that. That's a big bluff. Nobody has used a nuclear weapon since World War II for a reason. And the world just will not allow them to do that. So, but the fact that they have taken Israel to the brink, they've taken U.S. politics to the brink between Trump and Netanyahu, They're through. And we need to understand how this is going to impact Africa. And that's where we are today, is to discuss that. But just to clear the table, Kuwait and Iran, or Iraq, Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, Qatar, UAE, Oman, Egypt, all of those countries have harbored U.S. bases, and
Right.
all of those bases have been hit or wiped out in this last 30 to 40-day period constituting this alleged war. So if you're looking at that kind of devastation, you have to think about the U.S. cannot operate without any forward base. They don't have any forward bases in that area. They've got to come all the way from Europe or Diego Garcia or from the United States by ship, because they can't. I mean, you can fly in, but it causes a lot of refueling and logistical nightmare for the U.S. to even get in the vicinity of the Persian Gulf. So just logistically and geographically, they are going to have to give up this particular region because Iran doesn't want them there, and they have a missile system that is second to none, and they have the providence to use it. And they have shown that over the last 30 days, they are willing to take out the entire region in terms of hostile forces. And they've closed the Strait of Hormuz. So what does Africa do at this time? What do we do with this opportunity at this point? What can African Americans do to support Africa at this juncture? Because this is a window of opportunity, and that's what I wanted to talk about today.
Yeah. Just one thing, Arthur. You made a mention about nuclear strategic attacks, and we can't forget that during as the Ukrainian war is still going on, we see members of NATO and the EU. They have been talking about strategic nuclear attacks against Russia, and we also know that there has been that discussion with Israel and the United States of strategic nuclear attacks. And I am not so sure that they will not do this because, as we both know, that Israel and the United States has taken a pounding. It's an embarrassment. You have the strongest country in the world militarily. Then you have a top 10 country in nuclear armament taking a whacking. And it's an embarrassment. And I don't put it past the arrogance of these two white cats not to use a strategic nuclear strike against Iran. They will lose, but I don't think it's out of the question.
Yeah, well, if there is an attempt to use a nuclear weapon, tactical nuclear weapon, neutron bomb. I mean, they've been talking about these things for decades, trying to in a sneaky way, do a mini nuke, that kind of operation. The U.S. has just used a bomb in Gaza that will vaporize people so that you can't find your loved one except in a puddle and some rags. It can do that over a limited area, and it is a new weapon, and there still needs to be some investigation of that kind of tactical weapon. But tactical nuclear weapons are out of the question because China and Russia both have said to both Netanyahu and Israel and the U.S. that if nuclear weapons are introduced, they will be reciprocated. They will use nuclear weapons against Tel Aviv or against Israel if those weapons are used. So that is that's already a checkmate equation. And Bibi Netanyahu and Trump you're not going to hear that kind of discussion anymore. That's going to have to cease because they're going to have to take that out of their vocabulary because they can't do it. But it doesn't mean that the fantasies are there. I'm listening to people this morning talk about they like Trump because he's a great leader and he's talking about making a parking lot out of Iran and essentially, glassing it over with nuclear weapons. Well, I understand the fantasy, but it's not going to happen, and they can't do it. The other elements that we have to deal with, as I said, Africa is got a real political advantage right now. We could really do some serious organization, and in doing so, we could put Africa in a totally different position. And I hope that that's something that we can consider. Have you heard anything on your end, Malik?
Well, I think that the level of consciousness that this fray over in the Middle East has allowed kind of and ticks some growth amongst Black people in America, and here's why. We went from just a couple years ago when Gaza jumped off. You had this social media ignorance and their leadership. The YouTubers, and we already talked about these people that don't read books, have no context in history, but large, hundreds of thousands of followers say, that's not our fight. That ain't about. So now they know that not only is what's happening in the Middle East with the aggression of the Zionists and their proxy America that's turned around now. They know that white power, wherever it is present, affects us here, and it's also going to affect us in Africa. So what I'm hearing is the level of consciousness has been raised as we connect the oppression of white power, Israel and the United States, on the Middle East, Gaza, Lebanon, and Iran, and how it affects what's going on the African continent. And we must continue to make that connection so that the masses of our people can see the contradiction.
I think what happens, Brother Malik, is that our people in the United States, we understand, well, we align white power with racism. Okay, so we understand racism in this country, but I still believe that for the most part of our people really don't understand white nationalism, white power structure outside the confines of the United States. Because once it gets outside the confines of the United States, we hear our people talk about, well, the issue of them not having democracy. We hear them talking about, they living in a totalitarian state, or that Africans or Arabs are just bad people and they can't get along, that type of thing. So therefore, we don't understand it, from my perspective, outside our own jurisdiction. And that's something that has to be dealt with, because sadly, even some of our people who have gone to some places like Ghana where Lance lives, as to other areas, we begin to treat, some are not all, but some of us begin to treat the Africans in the same manner as whites treated us.
Yes.
You see, so therefore, it's a disconnect there. I don't really know how to break that disconnect. Maybe Brother Arthur knows better than I.
Yeah, I don't think it is as connected. I've been all over Africa. I've been to probably half of the countries in Africa, and I've been there for extended periods of time. But I don't see that treatment or that disconnect with Africans. Africans are very receptive to African Americans. Africans are, for the most part, if you get out of the hypotheticals that people have in their heads, you really find that, when you get there, it's very congenial. It's very easy for Malik to go to Morocco. I know you go there, and it's almost like family there.
I said African Americans towards the Africans towards the African Americans.
Yeah. So Art, what Dr. White is saying, and I've seen this firsthand. Initially, in my first trip to Africa back in 1991, 1992, I was in Ghana for an extended period of time. And what he is saying is not the reception that the Africans on the ground, regardless of the 54 countries, our receiving of our people. It is the mindset of Black Americans who were enslaved by white people here for 400 years, 300 years, and then 100 years of Jim Crow. They're free now. They go to Africa and they subject the Africans as the white man subjected us here. I've seen this myself.
Sure.
You know, and I can, Dr. White, to kind of understand this, I can only understand it from a human interest perspective. And then give you an example that's funny, right? I had a brother that was 1 year older than me. So here I am, 6, 7, 8, 9 years old. The dude was twice my size. Okay. Now he was bouncing me off the wall every chance he can get. But, you know, so I had to get one in and run, or I had to, you know, give me a brick and pow. And then, right now, here's what happened. When we were about 8 or 9, they sent one of our cousins from Chicago to for the summer to hang with us. And he was a little younger than, you know what we did? We took turns on him. You know what I'm saying? We oppressed him. I was the first in line to oppress him. Why? Because I was getting oppressed. Right. So I think this is the mentality that we take this to Africa, and we've been beat up so bad over here in America. We looking for somebody that we think that we're better than. This whole ADOS, foundational Black American type attitude that because we were enslaved by the best white man on the planet, right? The big bad America with all these facilities, air conditioned malls, and 5 streets, that we can go to Africa and take that old American dollar and then, wave it around in front of them like it has some power in that passport.
Well, the petrodollar is going to be dead here pretty quickly, as we all know and witnessing. You know, you remember that syndrome, the ugly American. African Americans and Black folks from America have just adopted a kind of an ugly American junior look. You know, we just take on that same vibe, and we take that around the world with us. You know, So I get that, and I think that that's very legit. But that's just something that we have to grow out of and get over more quickly than not, because it's just going to be necessary for us to survive. Internationally, if we're going to start considering ourselves international people, which we have to do, because this place and its economy and its society and social structure are in a gliding change, and we're gonna get caught up if we're not.
That's it. Here's a funny story. I just returned from the African Maghreb, and I see a brother. I swear, I'm just having lunch. Brother walks past me, starts talking to me, and he's from the Gambia. And I go, "Do you know where the village of Jufre is?" He said, "Absolutely. This is the home of Kunta Kinte." And I told him, I'm one of Kunta Kinte's ancestors. All Black America is going to connect to Kunta Kinte. Not only did he know who Kunta Kinte was, because he told me, right? And he knew where Dr. White, where the mosque that Minister Farrakhan built on behalf of Alex Haley, because he ran out of money. He built in the village of Jufre, the Kunta Kinte Mosque, right? He knew where that was. And I looked at him, you know what I told him, man? I said, man, it's astonishing how you look like every other brother on my block that I grew up with. I mean, you look just like us.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
But the mentality is different. I mean, we can't get past the fact that the president of Burkina Faso a few months ago had put out a statement and a move to restrict Americans, especially African Americans, because many of them, even though they come in with the same skin tone, they come in with the same language, their mind was different, and their mind was wanting to support the United States to undermine the country. So the African countries who are becoming more progressive, they are stuck between a rock and a hard place in reference to African Americans. And we are stuck in a rock and a hard place too, because many of us are not like that, like the others. We really want to get involved and help and become part of the homeland.
Yeah, exactly. I think to interject on that, Art, Ibrahim Traoré put a call out to the African diaspora: come and help, in spirit of Julius Nyerere during the 1960s in Tanzania. Come and help rebuild Africa, right? So Black Americans, along with others, responded to that call.
Sure.
However, what he found out after a few months, Dr. White, to your point, was that 94 to 95% of them were CIA.
Yeah.
Literally, CIA.
Hmm.
Central Intelligence Agency of the United States government, coming there to disrupt and, of course, set him up for assassination.
Well, of course, Arikana, the sister who was with the UN and made such a serious educational move to try and bridge these gaps that we're talking about. She's right now is hosting a number of African Americans in Burkina Faso to become Burkina Faso citizens, and they may be going through some of the screening that Dr. White is talking about, and it's probably highly necessary. I wouldn't trust African Americans either. If I was African, I mean, we come with some serious baggage. We come with some serious problems, and we do need to make a move to get our own act together so that we can go back into Africa and do some things that has never been done before. Because what is happening as a result of this crisis in Iran, when American bases have to leave the area, their fallback position is going to be Africa. They're going to fall back to as many places in Africa that they can set bases up.
Yeah.
And so that will make those countries targets. They just be out further a bit, but they're going to be, destabilized, and they're going to have some problems because they're hosting American bases. And under the current administration of most African countries, that's going to be the same APAC type, bring me the money.
And that makes it disappointing.
Write me the check.
Yeah, and that makes it disappointing with the African countries because in many respects, the majority of the African nations in this war, they have focused on de-escalation. Very few have come out outwardly to condemn Israel, all right, and to claim and to argue that Israel is a pariah state, it acted against humanity. They have been talking, on the other hand, of de-escalation. They have been focusing more so on a type of neutrality, all right? Even the countries that's in BRICS, the Black African countries that's in BRICS, they have been very, very cautious and very, very neutral. And to me, that's disappointing.
Yes.
Because again, they have the power to come out and outright condemn Israel, pull its diplomats, and close its borders to Israeli society and government. And they have failed to do that. And that's disappointing to me.
Well, the Black Caucus isn't the only group of Negroes that are susceptible, to blackmail and to, this kind of undercutting, because you have money. African leaders are running on platforms of, you get me money. They're doing the same thing. They have, America has a very powerful engine of political movement to undermine every election on the African continent, not just on the African continent, but throughout Latin America and other countries as well. But particularly, there's been an emphasis on Africans. So Africa, because Africa's propensity to accept the democracy or the democratization of Africa, that makes them very vulnerable to people paying the money and coming in and financing the campaigns. Whoever has the most money is going to win the election, just like we're talking about here with elections in the U.S. So the same dynamic is happening in Africa that's happening here. But we have to separate the leadership in those countries from the people in those countries. People in those countries are very supportive of Palestinians. They're very supportive of African movements throughout the continent, but they can't voice that support enough, and they can't organize around that support enough to get the media's attention. So we don't hear about it in the general public. But I found that on the ground in Africa, if you get out in the bush and you get out, beyond the cities, you find a very aware population that is ready to be supportive of all of the things that we're talking about, but it's just not on the radar. They're just not on the clock, because they ain't getting the cameras. Cameras ain't coming, and people, gonna ask, sister in the hood, what she thinks about the Black Caucus. It's not gonna happen. So
Yeah.
you're gonna hear them in an echo chamber, and they're gonna be talking to each other. So that's what the Muslim street is for, right? I mean, this is what we're trying to do. We're trying to get the word out and trying to disseminate something totally different so that we can communicate among ourselves, and we're free to do that on platforms like this, whether we are, what you say, Malik, how they, cage us and put us in a box so that we can't communicate, and get the algorithm expansion that we're looking for this show. But we don't do that anyway, because we got a whole different strategy, and we got a whole different network to do that. And that's what we're getting ready to launch, and we're getting ready to take it there, So, just briefly back to what's going on in Iraq. They had the discussions with J.D. Vance and high-level officials, the foreign minister in Iran over the weekend. And that meeting ended this morning, and everybody went home, no agreement. So they expect that, there's going to be some kind of hostilities. Iran is ready to deal with those hostilities. You're going to bomb Iran some more. You're going to kill a few people over a spread out country. You're going to bomb the hell out of Israel because they can do that. And they're going to continue to hit U.S. installations in the region until people decide that this isn't worth it. And they got the Strait of Hormuz.
Trump was. You mentioned the Strait of Hormuz as a leverage point for the Iranians. Not only that, the other leverage point, Dr. White, is time. Oil will open up tomorrow at around $89, $90 a barrel. It went to a high during the latest Trump outburst last week of about $112, $115 a barrel. Once it hits 120, it dumps the American economy into a recession. At 150, the world economy goes into a recession. Time is on the side of the Iranians. The next move for Trump and his band of devils is to go in under the ground, on ground, and go into Iran that way, which they're going to get their ass kicked.
Well, they did something really ignorant today. They sent in 2 battleships to escort 2 tankers through the Straits of Hormuz, and Trump was on the air this morning bragging about how these battleships, escorted these 2 ships through, and that they're going to open the straits. And what you going to do? It's like a battleship per tanker. I mean, how is that going to work out? I mean,
well, first of all, that didn't happen. Trump was absolutely lying on that.
I said he was bragging, but yeah, go ahead.
It never did happen. One of the things that we have to look at is that let's go back to 1972, I believe, when Libya was the head of OPEC, or they had a lot of influence in OPEC, and they began to reduce oil coming to the United States. I don't know if you remember, I know as a kid, remember the oil crisis there, odd even days, and how that decimated the American economy. This is going to be the same thing, but twice that, 3 times that, because right now the United States have no way to open up the Strait of Hormuz. No way. One of the issues that took place is that in the 9th agreement that they agreed upon was that Iran was going to control that, as well as tax or have a toll of a minimum of $2 million on every vessel going in. The United States under Trump this morning or last night said, oh, we could do it together. The Iranians said, hell no, that's not part of the deal. And the second part of the deal that they didn't like is that we said that Israel must stop the bombing of Lebanon. All right, must stop it completely. Now Trump and his team are saying, well, that was a misunderstanding. We never agreed upon that. That's a damn lie. You see, the point is that the United States and the Trump team really don't know what to do. They're trying to negotiate as they go along and trying to save face, because now the world has seen the United States now as the emperor with no clothes on. Remember that story? The emperor has no clothes now. All right, he's naked. No one fears the military any longer. No one fears American sanctions, because Iran has shown, along with North Korea and Cuba, that you can survive American sanctions and you can actually progress.
Yeah, we lost Dr. White. Art, next week, about a week and a half, the House Minority Leader, Hakeem Jeffries, who's also on the payroll of the Zionists, has said that they, when Congress reinvenes, he's going to call for a vote on the War Powers Act. We know that the Republicans control the House and the Senate. This is just, just some more bullshit, bro.
Yeah, African Americans are going to have to get off of this support of these leaders, whether they're black or white, but especially if they're Black Caucus type, alleging to be African American leaders. They're going to have to get from the balloting box, slaughter that they're taking, and stop sending these people out to be front people. And we definitely going to have to get beyond, what AIPAC is doing. AIPAC, and if it's not AIPAC, it'll be somebody else. But, just stop sending these sellouts up the chain and into Congress. Send some folks like Dr. White, some brothers with some integrity back to do some arguing if you feel that's the pressure point. I really feel that we have to even transcend that and have to get together with the people like Traoré on the African side and come out with a Pan-African manifesto and have a new paradigm agenda shift to something that is completely Black, especially with this opening that we see now in Africa, because we've got the opportunity to align with Arab and Islam, those brothers in a family that's close, and figure out what our points of concession and our points of cooperation are, and find ways to do that. We can support Palestine from Africa, as we are seeing because of Iran's bombing of the UAE, that cut off the supply lines to the RSF in Sudan, and really have given a boost to what's happening to diminish some of the slaughter that's going on in Sudan. And with the Darfur 23, Malik, as witnesses to that up close, we were certainly supportive of Bashir. We were not supportive of tearing the country of Sudan apart. We were adamantly against a civil war in that country, but that was being pushed by the oil companies and the Zionists and the Europeans, and they were running the game. We exposed a lot of their game, but we couldn't get that through to the people like Grange, who was the South Sudanese president, and even Bashir, for that matter, who was the president of General Sudan. So they didn't listen to us. They heard us, but they didn't listen to the undertones of what we were presenting. And we were warning them that if you split your country in half, that this would happen. And it's been chaotic and a shitstorm ever since. So any comment on that, Luke?
Yeah, I think, Black Americans find themselves, and we experienced it 20 years ago with the formation of the Darfur 23 on the banks of the Nile River in Khartoum. And that is that we have a special relationship a neutral relationship with the African continent, meaning that if there is a need for any kind of conflict resolution between two African states or internally within an African state, we're positioned to intervene as a solvent for those issues. If there needs to be clarity added in terms of a conscientious force vis-a-vis struggle, we can intervene and add to that. It brings us back to the Darfur 23. One of the themes coming out of the Sudan and that conflict over there was not only were we right or not splitting up the country and that it would lead to a civil war. It happened 4 years later under the Obama administration in 2011. Over 1 million people dead in the south of Sudan as they warred with each other and that were being played by the oil interests. We were absolutely correct when we said that there was a flood of propaganda coming in from the Zionist lobby as well as France. Who were pumping guns into various forces inside Sudan to overthrow their government. And we were only interested in stability there in order to begin to solve their problems. So we're going to be absolutely right when we came away and said that we wanted to revisit after the great year of Africa, which was 1960, which over 2/3 of the African continent got their independence from the Europeans. In 1961, the Casablanca group was formed under Muhammad V. Unfortunately, and then that Casablanca group with Muhammad V, the King of Morocco, Kwame Nkrumah, Gamal Abdel Nasser, out of Egypt, Kwame Nkrumah out of Ghana leading those forces, there was a ray of hope, right? Unfortunately, there was a catastrophe that happened, I think, I want to say May 1960 in Agadir, Morocco, that broke the heart of Muhammad V. And that was a massive earthquake. Thousands upon thousands of people dead. Now, a few months later, he visits the region, and within a year, in 1961, he passes away. Some say because his heart was broken of the devastation that he saw amongst his people. There is where we need to revive the connect that will strike fear into the minds and hearts of our enemies, and that is the coalition. The band has to come back together. Pan-African, Pan-Arab coalition in order to defeat white power is the solution. And how we fix those pieces, Dr. White, with an independent Black political movement, maybe revisiting Gary, Indiana in 1972, where we had over 10,000 delegates who attended the Independent Black Political Convention in Gary, hosted by Mayor Richard Hatcher, and that convention struck fear into the status quo in the United States, and they co-opted that entire thing. But 12 years later, we got Jesse Jackson running for president under the Democratic Party. Mm-hmm. When he stood up on that stage in front of 10,000 Black independent politicians who were calling for Black power, and he said nation time. And Ron Daniel, they sold that movement out. That is where we need to revisit at least an element to shore up the strength of Black consciousness vis-a-vis politics in this community, in this country, and also defeating the Black petty bourgeoisie who defeated us there.
That's some important history. What you got, Dr. Wade?
Yeah, I agree with Brother Malik. The difference, however, is that from 68 through 72, during that period, 73, the African American community as a group, we were not vested in any political party, not the Republicans nor the Democrats. We were vested in our interest and trying to get brothers and sisters into position that would be who would support what we're about and help our community. Now, the majority of the brothers and sisters who think they know something are vested in one party or another. So therefore, they utilize the party's platform to go after each other and the party as opposed to promoting our interests. And that's where we can learn something actually from the Jewish community, because in the Jewish community in the United States, you don't have a case whereby um, Jewish Republicans are fighting Jewish Democrats or independents or communists. They're all on the same page. They have a code. They have the all same interests. But here, we have changed that, and we have allowed the parties to create this narrative for our people. So the bigger question is, and I hear Malik and you, Brother Arthur, how do we break that up to get people to think interest and think Pan-Africanism as opposed to Democrat, Republican?
I think our responsibility is just to pull our people together, as it's always been, as they did back at the conference in Gary that Malik is talking about, and what they did in Casablanca and in Africa. They do it constantly. We need to continue, as Malcolm said, to organize. That's our responsibility. That's all we need to do. That's all we need to be focused on, is our own organization, the organization of our people, and do that till we get it done. That's our responsibility. 38 million people, 38 million people have died since 1971 as a result of U.S. sanctions around the world. 38 million people. Now, that's a study that came out of Purdue. It's not me speaking. What you think about that?
That's astounding. We continue to take these defeats not only internationally but also here locally. For example, I mentioned Juliana Stratton, who's going to the Senate as the next Black senator of the United States. This is locked and loaded. She also sat on the board of Dr. White Planned Parenthood, under Margaret Sanger, author of the eugenics movement from 1980 to 2020, an estimated 40 million Black babies were aborted. So it's like, what are we doing?
Wow.
I mean, go ahead, Arthur.
Yeah, I was going to say, in addition to that, 38 million people dying by sanctions. That's dying from starvation, dying from displacement, dying from being in refugee camps around the world. 38 million people since 1971 have been killed, have died in that way as a direct result of U.S. sanctions. And that sanction regime is going on today. Look at Cuba. The U.S. is literally blockading and starving Cubans.
Cuba next.
Yeah. So that number doesn't count. That doesn't take into account the number of people killed in wars that have been precipitated in Libya and in Syria and in Lebanon and in Sudan and in Somalia, and the list goes on and on. Congo, what's going on in Congo right now, in terms of fighting. So we are sitting here, as we know, and we've always called it the belly of the beast, because that's what it is. And we have a particular unique responsibility to be aware of what's going on, to the point of being proactive and actionable and being able to get some change from the inside. We got some power here too.
Yeah, we do have a lot of power. I mean, that number, 38 million, that's tremendous. But it still bothers my mind as to why can't not the global South and some of our friends in the global North isolate America on many things. I mean, we import so much from the world. We need so much from the world. What is so difficult of the world? At least 3/4 of the country saying, listen, we're going to stop doing business here until America get its place in order, all right, until it becomes more fairer. I mean, what is stopping the countries in the world from joining a coalition to stop Israel? I mean, is it just a case whereby, wow, America is so strong, or is it a case that we collectively have an inferiority complex
It's
and we
America
are
so
and we
strong.
are fearful?
It's America so strong. 750 military bases around the world. America has the biggest guns. They live in that Machiavellian understanding that those with the biggest guns win. I mean, the people around the world are afraid America is going to do with them what they did in Palestine, what they're doing in Iran, turn
Well,
their guns on them.
But
that's their
Iran
plan.
is showing that those big guns are, in many respects, are ineffective. I mean, even though they were slammed, but
Somebody said
the
the other
world
day,
has acknowledged that Iran has won this conflict at every level.
exactly.
Militarily, they have won economically, they have won the social media page, they have won. And
Well,
Iran
this is
now has become a dominant power, not just in the region, but throughout the world.
absolutely a great example. And, somebody said the other day that Iran is on the front line. Iran is fighting for everybody. Iran is fighting for all oppressed people around the world. They are essentially that catalyst right now. They've shifted to them. African Americans were that catalyst at one time.
Absolutely.
During the civil rights movement and the Black Power movement, we were taking all the lumps for the rest of the world. So and in Africa itself, South Africa and Southern Africa, and what happened before that in Algeria and places like um, um, uh, Mauritania and some of the other countries that picked up and did some pretty impressive and revolutionary things. But Iran is that point right now, and people are recognizing that internationally. And I think all we need to do is to organize here in the US, because people are still looking to African Americans to be that leadership voice among at least African people, Black people internationally and around the world.
Yeah, so on that point, Dr. White, as we come up on the hour here, we got 2 minutes left to close out. You heard me say Cuba next. It's not out of the realm of thought that in a month and a half, that we're going to be doing shows talking about Cuba instead of Iran, because that's going to be over. Marco Rubio, Secretary of State, a white Cuban that represents all of the white Cubans that were expelled during the Cuban Revolution in 1959, 1960s. His parents were part of that. They were the aristocrats. They owned the means of production. The CIA controlled them, even though Fujian Batista had darker skin. He was part of them, and they want to do Cuba next. What do you have to say on that as we close out the show?
Well, the other day, the Russians had sent a tanker there, and the United States was very fearful of trying to stop it. I think the Cubans have already told the United States that, yeah, we're poor, we're undermanned, but we're ready for you. And remember the Bay of Pigs. It didn't work out very well for the Cubans during that time. And I think right now the United States don't have public opinion on its side, don't have the manpower, and cannot take another loss. So therefore, all this bombastic talk from Marco Rubio, which is a little punk, and Trump, is just a lot of noise that means nothing at this time.
Well, let's make a call from right here on the Muslim street for African Americans and those people who are sensitive to what is going on in Cuba, to people, that we break this blockade. We do everything we can to break. I mean, it's this country that is creating the starvation in Cuba. They're literally, I mean, they don't have electricity. They are rationing everything down to a granular level. So, but we can do something about that. We are in position to do something more about that than the Russians are. But again, we have to have the political will and get over the fear of the military apparatus and the machines. We get ancestors that stood before worse and done a hell of a lot more. And what gives us the privilege of sloughing off and saying, oh, well, we can't do anything because they got guns?
Yeah, there's a project. The Muslim Street takes on the American government in terms of stopping them from what they want to do on behalf of Marco Rubio's parents, Ted Cruz's parents in Cuba. And that is to turn Cuba back to the way it was in the 1950s prior to.
We got just as much kith and kin in Cuba as Marco Rubio thinks he has. He ain't really got no kin there. 80% no blood kin.
Yeah, 80% of Cuba is African.
Yeah,
the 20% who were white were controlling it. Castro and Che Guevara came in and said that's over, and they haven't forgiven him since. A blockade on Cuba since the Kennedy administration, and that's before some of us were born, and here we are today.
Yeah. Well, we need to focus and organize.
Okay, so Dr. White, one thing before we go.
Yes, I just want to remind people to still support our campaign. We're independent, and we still need your support, your help, so we can break this thing that we call white nationalism in this country. And it's only going to be us. No one is going to come to our rescue. We have to support each other. So please go to drisaforcongress.com, drisaforcongress.com. Please send us your support. We've been talking about this for some time now, and we haven't received any support from viewers here. So please look into your bank accounts and try to support us, spread our messages, and purchase the book, Blacklisted, The Price of Speaking Truth. That is our calling card. So thank you. Together we're win. Together we're one. Together, Black Power.
Yeah, it's hard raising money, for campaigns and other things. So do the best you can if you believe in those things. Art, any closing remarks before Lance scoots us out of here with that beautiful music?
Well, I know he's a part of a blackout there, and he's sitting there in Ghana with a candle. trying to manage stuff, but hold it down, brother. Keep the faith, and we are, but we know those things all around the world.
Yeah, Lance, how you doing over there with that blackout, bro? Brown out.
It's temporary. I'm used to it. Probably after the show goes off, it'll come back on. It went off 1 minute before the show came on, but I have everything backed up on my phone, so I'm used to it.
Okay.
No way they should be going through blackouts like that in Ghana. This is just stuff we just need to solve. This is easy stuff.
Exactly.
Well, we know that story too, especially in Chicago when Con Edison decided to cut us off.
Yeah, and then we know that story in New York too. I ain't from New York. Never would be from New York. I'm from Chicago. Anyway, there was a blackout in New York in the 1970s, and the hospitals were full.
That's right.
So the brothers
77
take care of business who couldn't pay the light bill.
Yeah, but
I remember.
I'm sure what Ghana's going through. That's probably statewide. Probably the whole country is out.
Yeah. All right, Lance, you can take us out. I want to thank Lance Kershaw producing us out of browned out Ghana, along with Lisa White, who is the author of Blacklisted. You can find that on Amazon. And also Art Mobley, National Association for Black Journalists, founding member of the Dot 423. I am Malik Aziz, editor-in-chief of the Muslim Street. We'll see you next week. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.